You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. You're watching Force 13 Live, Severe Weather Day live across the United States. My name is Nathan Foy, and we will also be discussing what's going on in the world of tropics as well, with a 70% chance of development for Invest 90L out over in the Atlantic Ocean. We've got lots to cover today. First of all, this massive risk of severe weather and tornado activity, and possibly other activities there as well in parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and neighboring states. At this hour, I am joined by David and Hank. Good afternoon, evening, and morning to you both.
Good to be here.
Afternoon.
Alright, well, I think everyone figured I'd be passing over to Hank first to tell us all about what's going on here, because I think it's more your area than mine, at least geographically. What's going on? When? Where? How? Why?
Okay, so today is going to be the biggest severe weather day of the year. That there is no real questioning of. Right now we have a tornado watch that currently has a 95% chance that all the tornado risks, everything you can think of, tornadoes, high winds, hail, all of it, greater than 95%. That has not happened since April 27th of 2011, and that was just so happened to be the same day that we had the biggest tornado outbreak in United States and world history. So the thing that's going to happen here with this is that this is going to be a very significant tornado outbreak. It's going to come in two main stages. The first stage is already unfolding, and it's going to be getting progressively worse as we get towards the evening hour. Right now it's going to be in the afternoon. That's going to be the time where we're likely to see the supercells, these are the cells that may contain long track violent tornadoes, violent meaning tornadoes potentially EF3, 4, possibly even EF5 tornadoes across the high risk and even moderate risk portions of where the Storm Prediction Center has outlined this area. That is basically anywhere in the eastern Texas Panhandle, around the Wichita Falls area, up towards Oklahoma City. That is where the likely area is, most likely area for strong violent tornadoes. And some of these tornadoes could be very long tracked, and they can be very, very destructive, very big, and cause significant damage wherever they go. There's also the threat for hail, possibly up to softball size, as you can probably see on your screen right now. Winds, not even gusts, sustained winds up to hurricane force, maybe even wind gusts up to Category 2 strength. That's about 100 miles an hour, folks. And then flash flooding is also a huge concern with this, because some of these cells may drain and may dump 6 inches in a very short amount of time. And, you know, Oklahoma City is not just a high risk for severe weather, they're also under high risk for flash flooding, as issued by the Weather Prediction Center earlier today. So that means that some isolated areas could see very high rainfall totals in not a very long time at all. So even if there is a tornado hunkering down, make sure that there is also not a flood potential going on with this. I understand that threat has been overshadowed by the tornadoes. I completely get it, but it's still going to be a very significant risk. That's the first phase. The second phase is going to happen overnight, and that's going to be more in the form of a squall line. This won't contain as strong of tornadoes or hail per se, but there will be some very heavy rain, some very strong winds, again, possibly up to hurricane force across the area, not just in the high risk, but even outside it, even into the enhanced risk areas. It's possible that you might see significant thunderstorms of this nature, and that extends out farther down, almost to the Rio Grande, up through Kansas, and even into portions of western Arkansas. These are the portions where we might see these, where we might see the squall line be its strongest. In addition to all of this, there is the threat, I will mention, that the Oklahoma City area could be under the gun for a very significant tornado. Now, 6 years ago today was the infamous EF5 Moore tornado, and that was one of 2 tornadoes that struck the town as an EF5. And I'm not saying that will happen again today, but there is the threat that something similar to that could happen. Now, who knows where these cells are going to go? I don't. I know some people might want to say they know where these cells are going. Nobody really knows for sure. That's why there is this whole high risk area outlined right now, because there's nothing that's set in stone for any of this. So if you live in the Oklahoma City metro area, even as far east as Tulsa, all the way over towards Amarillo, Lubbock, even as far south as, say, Big Spring, Texas, or Wichita Falls, you need to be paying the utmost attention to what is going on in the world of weather this afternoon, as this is going to be a life-threatening event for millions of people from not just in the Oklahoma City area, but anywhere that I mentioned as well that is in the high or moderate risk areas. That is going to be where there could be some life-threatening flooding going on, or not just flooding, severe weather going on in this area. And that's not to mention Invest 90L, but that's not nearly as significant as what's going on right now, because this is going to be the focus of this live stream, though. And we will be giving you as frequent as updates as we can as what's going on right now. Right now, if I could just pull up my screen share, hopefully this is going to function with me today. It's been acting up a little bit for me. Let's see. I don't know why this isn't. Okay. All right, there we go. Let's get to the correct. All right, so this is what we have going on right now. We can see that there are some cells starting to go supercellular over towards the east of Lubbock, Texas. That's this area right in here where my cursor is. You can also see that there are widespread thunderstorms, none of them severe yet, that are going on right now in through this area. And let me just highlight here what exactly we're looking at today. So anywhere in this pink outline here, this is where we're expected to see the strongest storms. So you can see where it says high right here, anywhere in this pink area. And if we could also, I think that we're allowed to see, I don't know, I'll check on that earlier or later. You can see that this is the radar right now. You can see all this activity right here all through Oklahoma. None of this is severe yet, but these cells down here are probably going to become supercellular and drop a tornado at some point in their lives as they move off towards northeast. This is the beginning of what's going on. You can also see here this cell right here, just northeast of Lubbock. See how quickly that fired up right there. In fact, let me just pause the radar loop right there. You can see those blew up in literally 20 minutes, and this is probably already dropping some hail with it. This is how fast these things are going to blow up, and they're going to be moving relatively quickly, possibly up to speeds of 45 miles per hour as they move across this portion of the country right here. And that's another thing to be wary of. These are going to be moving very quick. So even if it says, oh, tornado warning, you might think that just means radar indicated. Pretend like it's on the ground. Pretend that there is a tornado coming towards you, because as we know from these type of events, that is likely what's going on right now, and it really won't take much to drop a tornado. A little speck on the radar could honestly become a supercellular thunderstorm, and a supercellular thunderstorm is one that could produce or will produce a tornado. So you need to be paying very, very close attention to all of this. I believe we have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect. We have 3 actually. Okay,
we've had several that have been issued since the top of the hour, Hank. Let's count them here. In the 8 minutes that we've been on air, there have been 4 that have been issued.
Yeah, so we have 2 in Texas right now, 1 in Oklahoma. One of these is for the cell north of Amarillo for the little community of Stinnett and up towards Morse. This area is being cleared right now. This could have, let's see if there's any rotation with this. Not significant rotation with that, but there probably is some pretty significant hail in some of these portions of the cell, particularly up towards north of Stinnett and east of Morse. In addition, there's the cell over here east of Lubbock. I was talking about this a little earlier. This probably has a pretty gnarly hail core on it right now. Yeah, that's going to be dropping. That could also honestly also be producing maybe a weak funnel cloud right now as well. That's
a new
this
one
is towards
just come out. A new one just come out as well. I think this is Missouri, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there's 2 in effect for southwest Missouri right now.
Yes, that's the one we're looking at there.
Yeah, so just looking at these are probably going to be more straight line wind storms than actual real hail cores. You can kind of see that right here. There's wind speeds in this one. Yeah, about 45 miles per hour in some of these cells right here, and a little bit of a couplet right there.
They say up to 60 miles an hour in that one, so that sounds about fair.
Yeah, and then this hail core. Oh lord, that's a hail core.
Mm, wow.
That'll be producing. Let's see, that's 80 kilograms per square meter. That's probably going to be producing some 2-inch sized hail in some spots within that cell, and that's going to be heading straight towards the Purdy area, in towards Crane and Reed Spring, and it's just cleared the Nesotho and Goodman areas as well. So those are some of the other cells. If we go back to this initial radar here, you can see it's not just down here; it's all across northern Oklahoma, Kansas, and into southwest Missouri as well. You can see a much larger complex up here. This is mostly just rain and general thunderstorms up here in Kansas. Further towards the south, they become gradually more intense, and then obviously down here is where we're expecting the supercell activity. But again, anywhere outside, even outside this high-risk area, you need to pay attention. You can see that this cell right here in Missouri, this is still under enhanced risk. That's still a pretty significant risk of severe weather. And even farther outside, you can see some of these cells in the slight risk area. That's also not as significant, but still that's a risk of severe weather right here. It's just this area right here where we have the most likely threat of having a probably major severe weather outbreak. This could be one of these red letter days that we look back on in weather history as one of these big tornado outbreaks. I'm not saying this to scare you. I am saying this to let you know that this could be one of these days that you've been hearing about as the day that something happens. And this could be and it could bust. It's possible it could bust, but at this point, it's looking unlikely that that will happen. So all of you living anywhere, in pretty much anywhere where I am showing my graphic right here, anywhere on this radar screen, make sure you have your tornado precautions ready, especially, again, states of Oklahoma and Texas. Have your tornado precautions ready just in case something happens. And at this point, I can't tell you who's going to get hit. I won't be able to tell you who's going to get hit until it's pretty much imminent, because meteorology is an inexact science. That's just not how it works. We will be here, though, to give you the latest information on what's going on with this unfolding event.
Yep, so you can see some of these local forecasting offices from the National Weather Service, Amarillo, Texas, there showing its main threats. Hail could become baseball ball size, they say, baseball size later, or larger today, or larger. Heavy rain and localized flooding, tornadoes possible, including long tracks, as you said. And there's this massive flooding potential as well today, isn't there, Hank? What are the main areas for that?
Okay, so for the flooding potential, that's not necessarily going to be in this high-risk area. That's going to be, I think I have the tab open for it right here. Let's see if that pops up. It might not. Okay, but all right, I'm just going to ignore that. So basically anywhere from the Oklahoma City area up towards Tulsa and into areas of southeastern Kansas and these corners right here of Missouri and Arkansas. That is where we're expecting the highest rain to occur, because that is where the overnight threat is going to come in. And let's go ahead and just check out some of this model just to kind of show you what I'm talking about here. You can see, actually, let's just go ahead and do the HER model right here. So this is what I'm talking about. So supercells going into the afternoon over western Oklahoma and into portions of West Texas right here. You can see these cells lining up, and this is at 21Z. That's in about an hour and 45 minutes from now. You can see these progress along. Again, don't take this verbatim because it's not going to happen exactly like this, but this is a general idea. And then you can see as we get later on, they start to consolidate more into a line of thunderstorms, or basically a squall line. And this is where the flooding threat is going to be higher, assuming that that some of these cells this afternoon and evening don't start to train. And if that happens, then there will be a significant flooding threat, a flash flooding threat more likely, as that happens. Now, we'll see on what areas that will happen exactly and how the squall line will evolve to potentially exacerbate those issues. But this is going to be where most of the rain, the steadier rain, comes from. And essentially the severe weather threat with this would be just along the leading edge. Behind it would just be general rain and thunderstorms. Along it, though, is where we're likely to see the severe weather with that on the leading edge. Now, these cells with this won't be as intense as with these supercells because you lose your daytime heating. You can see this is 8Z. That's about 3 o'clock in the morning right here. You're not having any daytime heating at all. It's the middle of the night. So these cells aren't going to be as intense, but they're going to be more consolidated together, as opposed to the supercells right here. As you can see, they're more sporadic, but they're much more intense right here. And these are the ones that will produce those long track violent tornadoes that you've been hearing about from the Storm Prediction Center and your local weather authorities. Basically, anyone who tracks meteorology today is paying attention to this right now, and this is going to be something that, again, could go down in the history books as a very significant outbreak, and that's going to come, again, in two parts: the supercells in the afternoon, evening, and then the squall line evolving into the overnight hours for the Oklahoma City area up towards Tulsa, and even as far south as Dallas to Waco, maybe even Austin could see some significant weather from this as we get into mainly tomorrow morning, though. But the further south you go, the less significant the storms will be. Again, the main threat will be in the areas in the high area been outlined by the Storm Prediction Center.
Some areas had flash flood warnings earlier, mainly in northern Texas. I think it was just one area, actually. We haven't seen any more flash flood warnings today so far. Hank, do you think it will take long?
Well, considering how saturated the soil is already in some of these areas, I wouldn't say it would take ridiculously long for some of these flash flood warnings to start popping up. All it takes, again, is just for a cell to train on top of you for at least an hour, because some of these cells can produce some really, really high rainfall rates. I'm talking rainfall rates up to, maybe even as high as 3 inches per hour, and that's going to drop a ton of rain over a very short period of time, and the soil just simply can't absorb that much water in that much time, so it's all just going to go to runoff, and that's probably going to be what's going to happen with this flash flooding if it does happen today, and that's going to be the most likely scenario for that.
Yeah, and I'm looking into Kansas mainly. A lot of these river gauges, and there's a lot of areas that are going to be rising in level for quite a while yet, not just tonight, but throughout the next few days, some of them to major flood stages.
Some of these rivers up in Kansas have been also really saturated from rains over the past several weeks. And right now up here, it's a much steadier rain because the atmosphere is a lot more stable. Up here, you're not likely to see these supercells that we're talking about for Oklahoma and Texas. That's not going to be the case for Kansas because the air up here just doesn't really support it as well. So you can see that in the SPC outlook. You can see the risk for severe weather is markedly lower up here than it is farther to the south. And that's mainly because, again, more stable atmosphere, and the atmosphere itself is cooler up here. So that's why it's all more consolidated into just rain and thunderstorms, especially for northern Kansas. Southern Kansas, not as much, especially as you get farther south. It gets much more unstable as you get towards this high-risk area.
So this is what we're going to be watching very closely as we enter this afternoon. 2 new severe thunderstorm warnings have just been issued. One in Oklahoma, including Hammond, Taloga, and Butler until 3 o'clock Central Time, and another one in Texas, a severe thunderstorm warning there until 3:15. I think that's way to the southeast of Amarillo, actually, down there, which Hank is nicely looking at for us on the screen.
Yeah, there's this kind of twin cells right here to the east of Lubbock. I believe this is the one that was just this is the one that was just issued for this. Unfortunately, my radar doesn't actually include the county names, and I just can't memorize all these counties up here. So this is in effect, let's see, this is for Dickens, King, Motley, and Cotley counties. Currently towards the northeast of Dickens, moving towards Paducah, and eventually up towards maybe the Childish area, up towards the Red River and into Oklahoma. This is going to be probably one of these cells that goes supercellular and drops a tornado. If this one actually is able to survive up to this point, that's probably very likely that it will. In addition to the one towards the west of this one's even more intense right here with probably a much more intense hail core moving up towards Roaring Springs and up towards Matador, and as well as this little one up here to the north, moving into Kitake, and then up into Turkey, and then Lakeview and Headley as well. And then this one cell towards the north east of Amarillo that we mentioned earlier is cleared Senate, moving in towards the Spearman area right now. That they will probably be receiving some pretty significant hail and some strong winds from this one. An update
to the severe thunderstorm warning in southwestern Missouri there. Still very much the same as what we were looking at before. Up to 60-mile-an-hour winds, valid until 2:45 p.m.
Yeah, this one's looking essentially the same. Going to be moving in. Looks like Purdy's going to be more in the clear for this one, but areas up towards Monmouth and Pierce City, sorry, up towards Vernoa and Aurora. These are probably going to be the areas that get hit the hardest by this cell right here in Southwest Missouri.
Wow.
Let's see, how close is that to? Okay, so not really all that close to Joplin, but even areas like Springfield up here could be seeing the leading edge of this little extension of thunderstorms. Probably not going to be severe, but it's possible that we may see some small hail around the Springfield area from this little extension right here. To go back to Texas. Okay.
Hank, before we get too busy, I just want to discuss a few other things for our viewers mainly. First of all, David is also here with us simulcasting on our Facebook page. David?
Yes. I think you got me.
Yep.
Hang on. Yep.
So
definitely on Facebook. Sorry, Nathan. I'm just following the Twitter and the information starting to
Yeah. You'll be with us for a while there, but the
I'll be
main
here for a
thing
while.
is that our US team is going to be in position in a few hours. I'm not exactly sure when, but the main bulk of the coverage tonight will be occurring on Force 13's US channel, which a lot of people don't even know exist, which is an odd thing, but you ought to know because they do some great work on there as well, and they'll be covering this event very closely tonight. Just search Force 13 US. You can also find it via our channel page. There's me again. So where are we moving on to now? I was thrown by that. But we're waiting for any major warnings to come through. Still very much the same stuff that we were looking at before, really. Let's see what's on our page now. Here's another look. If you've not seen it yet, this is the outlook, which has just skirted off my screen there. The tornado probability, 45% in parts of Oklahoma, including Oklahoma City, Hank.
Yeah, so this is the area where the tornado risk is going to be the highest. This is the highest tornado risk that has been issued by the Storm Prediction Center since April 14th of 2012, and that outbreak produced, what I think, 83 tornadoes, and one of those was an EF4, and it's possible that this could be the same way or more significant, and I think it's probably going to be more significant.
I've got to interrupt you for the first tornado warning of this event this evening. It is in Texas, the one that you were just monitoring before, I believe.
Yes, the cell that was just to the east of Lubbock in I don't know what county. The one that's moving towards Roaring Springs, and oh Lord, I could see why. That hook popped up quick. Okay,
that was really quick.
Yeah, so this has velocity values. Let's see. Yeah, that's about 60 to 70 miles per hour right there. That's popping up real quick. So that's moving almost essentially right towards Roaring Springs and then up towards Matador. Yeah, that, folks, that just shows you how quick some of these can pop up. Let's go back to the regular radar here. You can see how this just comes up pretty much out of nowhere, just kind of hooks around. This is what we could be seeing very easily with some of these cells. This loop goes over about 15 minutes. Not even that, more like 10 minutes. You can see how quick this evolves. This is what we're going to be expecting all throughout the day-to-day because the atmosphere is just so ripe for these types of cells. And I'm just going to show something really quickly. Some of y'all might not understand this, and honestly, I don't blame y'all because I barely understand it myself. This is what we call a sounding right here. Now, all you basically need to know is that this means tornadoes, 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 tornadoes. And you can even see up here that basically what this is just showing you change of wind speed and direction with height. And you can see that this means right here that it's going to be changing very quickly right here. And that means the atmosphere is very turbulent and that shear is very high. And tornadoes like that. Unlike hurricanes where we talk about high wind shear where it's not good, for tornadoes, they like high wind shear. That means that there's more turning with winds with height, so that means they get to spin up a little bit easier. Also see here some of these CAPE values. That's basically available energy that storms can use for their convection. Some of these values appear 4,397 joules per kilogram. I've seen higher values approaching 5,000. That's very, very high for even Oklahoma. Like even during May in Oklahoma, that is a high value. So that means that thunderstorms have a lot of energy to work with, and they can pop up real quick. You can, again, look at this radar loop. See how these cells right here basically just came poof out of nowhere.
You can really see them just starting to flare up there in those latest minutes. How long is that loop?
This loop right here is about 2 hours long. You can see at the very end, that last hour, it just blows up, essentially out of nowhere. And, I mean, you could also
We've got another tornado
that
warning, this time in Oklahoma. Tornado warning here. Let's get it on our screen. For these locations in western Oklahoma, including Strong City, Dempsey, Grimes, 1,864 in that region, radar indicated. So, Hank, can we see it at all?
Yeah, I have it up on my screen right now. Unfortunately, it's in kind of a bad spot because the radars are having a tough time reaching it. Yeah, this one's going to be tough to see, but I'm just going to look at it with just standard radar. See if that just comes up better. Okay, so there's not as well of a defined of a hook echo here. You don't need a very well-defined one to have a tornado, but it's usually it's preferred, but you don't need it. So you can see here there's a little bit of something trying to develop down here towards the west of Cheyenne and here in Oklahoma. And this could be dropping a tornado right now. Again, with these tornado warnings today, you know, usually when you hear the words tornado warning, you hear, oh, it's radar indicated, or it's just something that was spotted by a storm chaser, just a low-hanging cloud. No, assume this is a tornado on the ground, because today the conditions are so ripe, they're so favorable for these types of things, that just assume when there's a tornado warning issued that there's a tornado on the ground and headed. Now, and let me also clarify something else. It's not everywhere in this polygon right here. Not everyone in this polygon is going to see the tornado. This is just the general outline of the area that could potentially see it. Now, because you say you might be in one of these corners right here, or you're even behind it, then you should be okay. But even then, you would still probably need to take your precautions just in case the tornado veers off path. Again, like hurricanes, these things don't follow straight lines. They tend to wobble a little bit. So don't assume that that just because it says, oh, it's just going to pass just north of me. It could wobble south. It could wobble towards you. You never know. Yeah. So just pay attention to these very closely. Pay attention to any sort of... yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. What is it about this setup that makes things so almost set in stone that, you know, anything that could go wrong might well go wrong today?
Okay, so today is very unique in that there's every little aspect that we usually see with these types of cells is pretty much in place today. Now, there's multiple things that could be discussing here. Like I said earlier, with that sounding I showed you earlier, those CAPE values are ridiculously high for this portion of the year. Even for May, they're usually pretty high, but now they're ridiculously high. The shear values are really high, about 70 knots within just the first 2 kilometers of the troposphere, just the bottom 2 kilometers, and that's very significant. And you also need to note that there is some values here. This is what we call the significant tornado parameter. Anything above a 2 is significant, and anywhere you see in the reds, the purples, 9s, even these 10s? Blues, these are approaching. Some of these values are, I mean, they kind of get a little high as you get towards convective masking, but these general values up here, anywhere between 6 and 10, are ridiculously high. And in the supercell composite right here, that just takes into account a bunch of these factors. I'm not going to get into this because I don't want to bore you. It's very high as well. You can see up towards some of these areas in here, it's up towards 16, 18. You don't need to know exactly the scaling, but that's very, very high for today. And in addition, something that I guess a bit more digestible, the dew point out there is really high as well. It's up in the 70s. You can feel it out there. You can feel how humid it is out there. You just walk outside and you feel like you're in a sauna. That usually is a pretty telltale indicator that the atmosphere is pretty ripe for tornadoes. Now, none of this would be happening if it wasn't for a trigger, and that trigger is an upper low that's located towards the west over the Four Corners region that's providing this change of wind with altitude and also going to be dragging in a bit of a frontal boundary with it as well. That's what's going to be triggering these storms. That's going to be instigating all the lift that these things can use to really spin up ridiculously fast. And if there's really, I've been tracking tornadoes, really just weather for about a decade now. There's only been a few instances that I've seen the atmosphere more right than it is today. One of those instances was, actually both of those were in 2011. And 2011 was the biggest tornado year that we've ever seen. Not just a super outbreak, but the outbreak we also saw in mid-April, also the one that included the Joplin tornado. And that Joplin outbreak had a little section of the outbreak that included a bunch of tornadoes in Oklahoma, and that was on May 24th of that year.
Yes. Today
is looking very similar to that. In addition to May 20th of 2013, that one dropped an F5 tornado or an EF5 tornado, moved right through more, and 11 days later, we had the El Reno tornado, which was arguably the most powerful tornado ever to exist on the face of this planet. So I'm saying these stats to just give you an idea of what could possibly happen today. Not because I want to scare you or make you feel or make you just feel nervous. And it's okay to be nervous. It's human nature, obviously. But the thing with this is that there is so much going for a widespread tornado outbreak today.
And Hank, in these areas, there's really no excuse to not have a plan of action set up on this.
Yeah, if you don't have a plan of action going, then you need to get one as soon as you can, because these storms are already firing up here. And the moment that you see the warning, either on your phone or you hear someone else say tornado warning, or last resort, you hear the siren outside, take your precautions immediately. And what I mean by tornado precautions is this. Excuse me. You find a sturdy structure. That means you're not in a mobile home, you're not in a car. You get to the lowest level of that structure, and you get towards the middle of it. That means away from windows, away from outside hallways, away from anything that's breakable on the outside. And in addition, you get into the very middle section. Like if it's like a middle closet, if it's the bathroom, get into that. As long as it doesn't have an outside wall, you should be okay. Better yet, if you have a storm shelter or a basement, get into there. That is, the storm shelters and basements, anything underground is the best place to be in a tornado situation. But if you don't have one of those, take those things that I said earlier. Lowest level of a sturdy structure, get towards the middle of it, closet, bathroom, and something to cover your head. It could be a bicycle helmet. It could be a mattress. It could be whatever you need it to be. If it looks stupid, who cares? You're saving your life. You can prepare your property. You can't replace lives. That's what's very important today, and that's something that all people in this area should know is what to do if a tornado happens. You've probably done tornado drills at some time in your life. Today may be the day where you have to take those tornado precautions. There very likely will be if you're in the high risk or even moderate risk areas. So
yep.
That's just my advice to you, is to not wait to hear the siren, not wait to hear the meteorologist say tornado confirmed on the ground. If you hear the words tornado warning, get to shelter. Assume it's on the ground. Assume it's the worst case scenario, because it may be.
Indeed. If you've got any comments or questions for us whilst we're on the air, I should have said this sooner, please get in touch. There's a new tornado warning. It's an extension of or change to the original one that was in Oklahoma, Hank. So that one's still going along. We'll just show it on the screen there. That's that latest tornado warning there. Long-sized hail possible as well. But just whilst it's semi-quiet at the minute, Hank, I just wanted to touch on the tropics as we are at the minute. Invest 90L could be developing into a cyclone. Let's see if we can find, there's S95P there briefly, but this is 90L on the image now. Could be another early start to the Atlantic hurricane season.
Yeah, this invest has been surprisingly vigorous, I must have to say. It's from the start, it looked kind of like it was going to be a bust, like it wasn't going to be much, but now it's actually got something going. It's got a pretty well-defined mid-level center. It's got a lot of convective coverage because of that upper low that you can see towards the west. That's that little blur of blue cloud cover that you can see over there towards the west of where the invest is itself. That's an upper level low, and that's providing some baroclinic lifting towards the convection over this invest right here. Now, at the surface, we had a scatterometer pass go through, and it found just a surface trough, but it was getting close to closing off. And some of the winds at the top were exceeding about 25 knots. So if this thing were to become a subtropical cyclone, if it were to become named, it would likely be subtropical just because of the nature of the baroclinic lifting with that upper low. It's complicated. I don't want to get into that. But it would be subtropical in nature if it does that. Recon was flying into it. Let me check to see what they found, if they found yet. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. I don't know if they've gotten into the center quite yet. They look to be relatively close, though. I don't know exactly where the storm is located itself. I should know, but I don't.
It's quite a bit.
I'm sorry. I've just been focusing on the severe weather a little too much, a little bit more. Yeah, they're getting pretty close into the actual center. I'll wait to see a wind shift in here to see if we can find anything substantial. But what they have found so far is flight level winds. Let's see, flight level winds of only 18 miles an hour. So it's not. It hasn't really gotten in there quite yet. But it's possible that they might find something that could be possibly worth designation, but if it were to be designated, it wouldn't really have any impact on land areas, apart from maybe just some rain and wind for Bermuda. But apart from that, that's essentially it. And this would be very short-lived and weak if this even does get named. So I wouldn't worry about this too much. Obviously, the focus right now is on Texas and Oklahoma and all the craziness that's likely going on there over the next several hours. So we'll wait to see on exactly how 90L evolves. But yeah, right now it's looking pretty good. 70% chance of formation given by the National Hurricane Center over the next 2 and 5 days.
My
sounds
thoughts
about
on
right
that?
to me.
Oh dear. Well, let's get back to those 2 tornadoes. Tornado warnings. Anything we can tell from the radar imagery?
The only thing I can tell from the one that's east of Lubbock near Roaring Springs is that hook has gotten even better defined. Let's see. Oh
dear.
Good lord. Okay. Let's see.
I'm not an expert in this field, but even I can say that's not good.
Yeah, let's see. Velocity differences of about 90 to 100 miles an hour. That's probably an EF1 tornado right there. I'm just gonna. Again, this is probably on the ground.
And what's that town there nearby?
Roaring Springs. Yeah, I know the quality of my screen share might not be the best, but the town right there is called Roaring Springs. Right there, they're probably gonna dodge this just to the north.
Yep.
And the town of Matador will probably dodge it even more, but they're still going to be getting some severe weather just in the form of hail and high winds. Like, yeah, that's a pretty significant hail core bed to move into Roaring Springs right there. I wouldn't be surprised to see. Let's see, what's the... Oh, Lord. Okay, yeah, it's weakened a little bit, but the hail core at least. But that's still some maybe quarter-sized hail moving into Roaring Springs. That's definitely enough for a severe thunderstorm. And that hook right there has just gotten even better defined over time. Yeah, that's velocity differences right there, 105 miles an hour. So that's probably an EF1 tornado on the ground to the south of Roaring Springs. As for the cell up in western Oklahoma right now, let's see. This one's going to be harder to reach because the radar imagery. This is kind of a spot where radars don't really intersect. So it's going to be tough to exactly see what the velocity values is. And I don't think I'm not going to be able to get anything. Though, just looking at radar imagery itself, it doesn't look like anything as well defined as what we have down towards the south, east of Oakland Spring is. So I would assume that this is there could be a tornado on the ground with this. Again, assume there is one. But this is likely to be much more of a hail threat than anything. Yeah, that's a hail core if I've ever seen one. That's probably 2.5 inch sized hail with that one moving just to the north of Cheyenne and Strong City right there. And then that will be eventually moving towards Leadley and then up towards Camargo and Taluga as well as this other cell that's towards the east, moving between Leadley and Putnam. That's going to be moving towards Taluga and Sealing as well over the next several minutes as this progresses off. Both of these cells progress off towards the northeast.
So those are the two main areas right now. David, have you been monitoring the wires? Any information coming out that you can give to us?
I was just going to ask Hank if he can, from the radar, Spearman, Texas, whether there's a weakening area.
You said Spearman, Texas?
Yep.
Okay. Spearman. There's a little bit, but they're right now in the core. They're in that hail core right now. So it won't really matter for them as to if the cell is weakening right now or not. It may matter later on for towns like Perryton, Booker, and up towards... I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that. And then areas as we get closer up towards the Florida Panhandle, it will likely be up into this area as well. The cell may start to be weakening, but I wouldn't really expect it to be all that weak. And even then, there's a little bit of a boundary layer that's extending farther towards the south that may try to initiate a cell up towards the northeast of Amarillo. So we'll see exactly how this cell evolves right here. But this is probably just going to be one. This is one of several that are just going to blow up over the course of the day.
Yeah, another severe thunderstorm warning that's just entered Oklahoma there. It might have already been in effect, I'm not sure. Affecting Eric, Sweetwater, and Berlin until 3:30 p.m. Central. David?
Just monitoring the chat. Trent asks, is there a chance for significant tornadoes in Springfield, Missouri today?
Springfield, that is going to be the tornado risk there is not particularly high, if I remember correctly. I mean, it's not as high as what you're dealing with down here, but in Springfield, let's just get a look for that. Let's see, that's about 10% right there. That's still pretty high. I'm not gonna downcast that. That's pretty high. But if there is going to be a tornado, it would likely be in association with the overnight squall line, and that, if anything, that would probably get there towards morning. And maybe some afternoon cells could potentially drop a tornado there, like the one that's about to move in right now. The severe thunderstorm warning was canceled for that. So, and just looking at that radar imagery from earlier, it looked like that little band was weakening anyways. So I don't really think that there's going to be a tornado associated with that specifically, but just keep watching out just in case something else may drop from the sky, because it's definitely possible that you could see at least a chance that at least a weak tornado could move through. But again, just stay weather aware just in case something might happen.
All right, we've now got Chicago on board. Hello, Ryan.
Hello.
And how are you today? And what's your opinion of what we're seeing coming up?
I have lots of opinions. This is probably, of course, this is going to be the most dangerous outbreak that I have ever tracked, and it will probably be the one of the most significant for this area. Please, if you are under severe weather, if you're under any of the PDS watches, I would suggest having a plan to evacuate if you are in like a mobile home, so you don't have to do that once you're put under a tornado warning. Make sure that you have a plan in place of where you're going to go, what your plan is going to do if you are put under a tornado warning, because this is going to be a very dangerous and possibly one of the strongest outbreaks we have seen in recent years. If you are, Yeah, basically you need to stay weather aware, and storms are starting to fire up now, and they're about to get a lot worse. Let me tell you.
I'm not seeing another hook that's forming just to the east of the Roaring Springs cell right now, just to the southwest of Paducah. It's not as significant as the Roaring Springs one. In fact, it looked like that the hook south of Roaring Springs is weakening right now. But this is probably going to be tornado warned relatively soon, if not if it hasn't already. My radar's just not updating. That's going to be probably, if in this situation, that may or may not be on the ground, but assume it is, obviously, just in case that, something just comes up, because it's very likely that something will if you do come into this area.
Yeah, we're waiting for an update from the Storm Prediction Center, which should be coming up very soon, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, it's 15 minutes from now.
So we're waiting up for that. Also, new information on the tornado warnings. It's both the same ones that we have been watching. They've just been shifted up towards the northeast a little bit, as you'd expect, as the cell moves on. So it's just those two areas that are tornado warned at the moment. I say just, this is just the beginning as well. Quite a few severe thunderstorm warnings out there. Hank, a guesstimate on how many we've got right now?
Severe thunderstorm warnings?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are in effect right now. One of them, actually, I don't think we discussed this one. Just to the west of Oklahoma City near El Reno, there is a severe thunderstorm warning in effect right now for this cell right here that's going to be moving up towards I-40 and eventually intersecting El Reno pretty soon. It doesn't look as menacing as some of these other cells out towards the west do, but it doesn't really take much for some of these to produce some pretty damaging straight line winds. It doesn't need to have one of these really mean looking cores right here to be severe. This thing could be producing wind gusts in excess of 60 miles an hour. So we'll see exactly on that. It is severe thunderstorm warned already. So I mean, some of these velocity values aren't ridiculously impressive, but there could easily be some very strong winds. I'm approaching the El Reno area right now from this severe thunderstorm warned cell right here. Also, really quickly to note, you just look at the cell right here. I'll just stop moving it. Note how quickly some of these cells are moving up towards the north. You can see in this little frame right here, this El Reno cell moved about 6 miles in the span of about 10 minutes right here. That's pretty quick. That's about 40 miles an hour right there, if my math is correct. Maybe not. I don't know. I can't do math. I have a calculus file tomorrow, but I still can't do math. Forget the numbers. They're moving quick, and because of that, that means that if there is a tornado warning issued, that means you need to take action immediately. Don't wait until you can see whatever you call it, the funnel cloud. Don't wait till you can see that, because number one, that's stupid. Number two, if you see a tornado on the ground, get to shelter. Don't film it, because that's not your job. Your job is to protect your life. That's the job of storm chasers. They're the ones who are the professionals at this, and even they're putting their lives in risk to do it. So don't film the tornado. I know people in Oklahoma, people in Texas, they want to do that. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It's cool. Yes. Don't do it. Anyways, yeah, that's just my spiel. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Okay, so let's check these cells again. Yeah, same thing.
We've still got those two tornado warnings in effect right now. Not much else to say at the minute. We're just watching those very closely. Looking at reports, nothing is... there's no reports of a tornado sighting yet, but that could change at the drop of a hat. I'm not sure if David has any other news.
National Weather Service witched a few severe storms likely this afternoon and tonight across southern Kansas. Primary threats: large hail, damaging winds.
And if you've got any
thunderstorm,
I'm sorry.
At 2:41 p.m., severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located 8 miles southeast of Matador, Texas, moving northeast at 40 miles per hour. Nathan.
Yes, if you've got any questions for us whilst we're on the air, now's probably the better time than any, because at some point we're going to get extremely busy and won't be able to take any questions. Start your message with Force 13. It will highlight for us on the stream, and then we'll be able to, point them out and hopefully get a response. So, we like to encourage viewer participation in all of this. We are always... I like to feel that we're always putting in a sense of we're all in this together when we're watching these events unfold, because we have people all around these areas who are within our team who watch this extremely closely, not just with the severe weather but with hurricanes, which is of course what we typically cover. This is going on the main channel tonight because of the gravity of the situation, but the US stream, the US team will probably be taking over at some point later this evening on the US channel. We'll have links available. It is already in the description whenever they do start streaming, so that's where probably the best coverage from Force 13 will be. But this is what we have right now. Those two areas that are tornado warned.
Yeah, and we just got a new tornado warning. This is for central Cottle County in Texas. This goes until 3:30.
Now, is that an extension of the one we've been looking at, Hank, or is this further up?
I believe it is.
Yeah, that's just an extension of the one near south of Matador and east of Richland Springs right now.
And let's have that on the screen.
Actually,
here.
no.
No,
it
I
looks
don't
like a
think it
different
is.
one. It's a different one. It's just to the east of the other tornado warning.
Oh, did they finally issue a tornado warning on this cell to the southwest of Paducah?
Yep.
Oh, yeah,
This
they did.
includes Paducah.
Yes.
Soon enough. That should have happened like 15 minutes ago, but okay.
So that's radar indicated there, $half-sized hail possible.
Can I just cut in and go to Tropical Wind 90L? I'm citing information that there's a recon flight.
Yes, we knew that.
Yeah, and maybe close to becoming a subtropical cyclone.
Oh, here we are. Hank's looking at it now.
Yeah, actually, some stronger winds have been found within the actual, whatever you call it, disturbance. Let's see, winds of 22 knots at the flight level. That's about 25 miles per hour. That's about the wind speeds that were estimated by the ATCF. Not really seeing much wind shift here, but we should just wait for the plane to fly around a little bit more, and we should get a better idea of exactly where the center of circulation, if there is one, would be with this going on right now. Just looking at satellite imagery alone, I mean, there's definitely a semblance of something there. It's just hard to tell whether or not it's closed right now, but that's what Recon is in there to find out. There will be periodic updates from them throughout the stream. We'll cut back to them every now and then, but of course the focus is on the severe weather right now.
2 new severe thunderstorm warnings, and they are one's in Texas for the north of the tornado warned areas, and one is in Oklahoma just over near the border with Texas. So it's very much that area that is the significant area right now. It's going to spread later, of course. So this event is underway. We have a few questions that just came in there. A lot of questions about the hurricane season, so we'll indulge whilst we can. Let's see here. Well, Cyclone Freak makes an observation. 2019 Atlantic hurricane season possibly off to an early start. Not surprising at all. Another question: What are the chances of a high-end EF4 or 5 tornado today?
Pretty high.
Pretty likely. Yeah.
Just we can't tell you exactly where, because again, all this is an inexact science. We won't be able to tell you exactly where until the event really is unfolding. I know sometimes that might sound kind of shocking considering, we can know where hurricanes will be in 2 weeks. Why can't we know where a tornado will be in 2 seconds?
Yeah.
It's complicated like that, but we'll see exactly where these cells track and what cells in particular will be stronger than others, because some cells may look like they're more vigorous than other, but it ends up they're dropping a weaker tornado than one that looks a lot weaker.
New
Sometimes it
tornado
just happens that
warning.
way.
Tornado warning for Russellville in Texas. I'm not sure if that's attached to one of the other ones, Hank. I'm sure you can check it out for me.
Russellville. I'm
That's
only
just
seeing the
east
two
of
down
Matador,
here.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it would be in effect for wherever Russellville is.
East of Matador.
Yeah. Okay. So it's in this general area
Yep.
east of Matador. So it's the same cell that was moving around Richland Springs. I think that the couplet on this one was the one that was weakening. I don't remember. Yeah, this is the one that it was the weakening couplet, but still, it looks like it's steadied out now. But it's still probably, if there is a tornado on the ground, assume there is again, that it would be relatively weak. But I wouldn't put it past that it could be a little bit stronger than what some of these velocity values are indicating. I thought I saw something or heard something like a storm chaser observation say it was just a wall cloud, but still,
Not sure.
just pretend it's on the ground.
Just some quick questions. They are pertinent, so I want to go through this pretty quickly before the end of the hour. Will we see Tropical Storm Andrea and Tropical Storm Alvin in the near future?
I don't know. One of them, none of them maybe. Alvin, nah.
Is a tornado emergency a thing, and what does it mean?
Yeah, so tornado emergency basically means that there is a confirmed strong tornado on the ground that is moving towards a relatively populated area. That's the general definition of a tornado emergency. And now, that doesn't mean it has to be towards a big city like maybe Oklahoma City. It means it could just be towards a smaller town. It doesn't even have to be like the biggest town you've ever heard of. It just has to be towards a strong tornado that's confirmed moving towards a relatively populated area. It doesn't have to be relatively big to be underneath a tornado emergency. That just means that this is the real deal. Go to shelter, no questions asked.
All right,
I'm seeing a new tornado warning also issued for areas west of Oklahoma City now.
Oh my,
This
yeah.
includes this would include El Reno, Kingfisher, Piedmont, Okarche, and Concho. This is for southeastern Kingfisher and north central Canadian counties until 3:45.
There it is. We'll pick it up after this short break with the latest information on that. Stay tuned. Coverage continues in a moment. You can follow Force 13's outlets, the website, force13.com, our YouTube page, youtube.com/Force13, on Facebook under the same name, Force13, and our Twitter handle, it's @Force13 if you wish to get in touch. You can also add Force13 on Skype and my personal account on Discord, Fool13, at extension 9094.